What is
Hello,
going
welcome.
on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to the XFL from the stands, week 2. We've got two fresh faces that you've never seen on the show before, either this show or the college football show that we do. To my left, my left, your right, Geoff. We've got Geoff on the show. Welcome to the show, Geoff. First
Thank
time
you for
on
having
it.
me.
And to the other side, we have Cameron. He's here as well, all the way from across the pond. Although it looks like his camera may be frozen a little bit. That's fine. We'll just have to deal with that. But coming across the pond from England, we've got Cameron with us as well.
Hello.
So, guys, last week we had the premiere of the XFL, and I think we all kind of had our thoughts and feelings of how things might go and how things would go. The expectations, right? Did the XFL Week 1 live up to your internal hype? Did it live up to your internal expectations, Geoff?
Yeah, I would say it definitely did. I was a little perplexed or confused about how the kickoffs would go, but I honestly love them. And I thought the play level was very high for week 1. It's very difficult sometimes to compare coming out of a Super Bowl and a national championship and go, is this even football? But they actually performed at a level that was most teams were pretty about mid-even as far as I'm concerned.
I hear you.
How about you, Cameron?
Oh yeah, it was about the level I expected. I didn't have any real preconceptions about the quality of the football going in. I think I was just looking at how the kickoffs would go and how the extra point attempts would go. But yeah, they all went about. They seemed to go over fine. The officiating was a good standard. So yeah, I think it stood up to the hype for the most part.
I agree. I went into it expecting, I actually think it exceeded my expectations a little bit. I think that the only downfall for me was ESPN's broadcast presentation of it. They didn't put. It feels like they didn't put any microphones in the crowd, right? Because you could very faintly in the background hear the crowd going insane, but you couldn't hear it through the broadcast. It wasn't very prevalent through the broadcast itself, which is kind of weird because generally ESPN does a better job of piping in crowd noise versus, someone like Fox. This time it seems to be the other way around. So watching that first game on ESPN was just kind of really weird. I guess technically it was ABC, but we all know ESPN does the broadcasting for ABC during that stuff. So it's one of those things where I was at the very beginning, that first game, I was like, something just feels off, and that's eventually what I found out, or found it to be, was that the crowd noise wasn't there, but it is there. The hype is there. We had people actually at that game that were like, dude, the crowd is intense, right? It's a great crowd. It just wasn't being picked up on TV, which kind of killed a little bit of that ambiance for me. So, yeah. So I guess we all enjoyed week 1 of the XFL. I guess we wouldn't really be here if we hadn't have enjoyed it. Of course, we've got all sorts of camera problems going on right now. We've got Cameron is frozen. Yes, you're very frozen. Oh, there we go. We're getting something now. And then the other one, Geoff over here, his camera keeps going black and whatnot, but it's all right. We'll deal with it. In the meantime, I want to talk a little bit about what happened in these first 4 games that we saw. We had a lot of, internal discussion amongst the staff, about, what teams are going to win, who the favorites are, and things like that. And we were I want to say probably 50-50 overall as to what was going to happen, but we did not expect Dallas to lose to St. Louis. That was a bit of a shocker. Granted, we're going to get into this a little bit later. They were, missing their starting quarterback. The system that, their offense is going to be based around wasn't there. So, you could tell from the play calling, very, very simplified play calling for the backup quarterback that was in the game. Matter of fact, every single play was the exact same. It was just banana, 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 banana. So I want to talk a little bit about that last game, that Dallas game, just in the sense that I feel like we didn't really get to see Dallas play, right? Like, we got to see their defense play, which was, decent. I don't know if LA is, or not LA rather, but I don't know if St. Louis's offense is a good benchmark for a defense, but I think the defense looked pretty okay. The secondary is a little off. They kind of got beat up a little bit in the secondary, but hopefully they'll improve as they play more snaps and get more reps in. What did you guys think about that Dallas and that Dallas game?
I think definitely in the sort of the fourth quarter when they were trying to come from behind, it definitely showed the sort of the lack of arm strength and or accuracy that Landry Jones provides. I think they probably would have staged a comeback. You see the two sort of deep passes right at the end that were off the mark. I think Dallas stands a better chance of making those passes with Landry Jones in.
Yeah, I could agree with that for sure.
Yeah. And for my part, I think it was very penalty laden, so I don't want to ignore that factor in all of it. It just seemed like there were flags everywhere. St. Louis seems more than most teams very dedicated to running the ball. They just, kept running. Or sorry, St. Louis. I think I might have said Dallas, but St. Louis is more dedicated to the run. And, Dallas had, permitted a lot of plays. I mean, there were 71 offensive plays for the Battlehawks. It was not the most entertaining, but it seemed to me that the quarterback Nelson for Dallas was not quite up to the task. I mean, he just wasn't quite able to.
Mm-hmm.
Suddenly,
we lost your audio there for just a touch.
Oh, okay. You got me back?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I think that maybe the starter may have the possibility of supercharging that offense, but if it's going to stick with Nelson, I think it's going to continue to be anemic, and they'd be, with maybe a third or fourth finisher in the West out there.
I could see that.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's move on to probably the most shocking game, at least for me. I did not think Houston was going to come out swinging, and Houston definitely came out swinging. That was probably the highest scoring game we had of the weekend, I believe, against the Guardians there. Both teams actually, in my opinion, looked really good in that game. But it's still early in the season. We haven't really seen these teams play it all out there and really have that good judgment call on defenses and offenses. But those two teams, in my opinion, looked pretty fantastic for what they were. What did you think about that Houston game, Geoff?
Houston, LA Wildcats at Houston, they were, Houston was incredible. I think they were the best eye test of anybody. They were offensively clicking. They were having fun. June Jones' offense was wide open, and it was everything that you expect out of a June Jones offense. PJ Walker, I think we need to coin a phrase for that, like wing it like Walker instead of bend it like Beckham,
Wing it like Walker.
He was incredible. And it was sort of, not only that, but defensively, those guys were flying to the ball. You could tell they loved to hit, and they were just after it. And as a guy that played, both ways in high school, I I appreciate that. Like I love getting up defense and going out and laying some hits down. It was a lot of fun. So I could see that kind of passion for them that I don't see in a lot of other guys on the professional level, where they were just like they were going out like a pack of wolves trying to get at somebody. They were excited about it.
Indeed. What did you think there, Cam?
I think I agree with everything Jeff said. They came out of the blocks like a team on fire. It almost looked like they'd been playing games before. I mean, all the other matchups, they looked like this was their first professional game. I mean, a lot of the teams grew into their matchup, but Houston and LA in the first half, they both came out of the blocks flying, which made it very exciting to see.
Indeed. And there were some other sides of that spectrum as well. The Vipers, for example, not looking too hot. There. The Dragons not looking too great themselves. What did you guys think of, or what did you think, Cameron, about the Vipers and the Dragons in their respective games?
I mean, the Dragons, I think, possibly not as bad as people say. They lost on 2 defensive touchdowns, one being a block punt and the other being the wide receiver just having, to use a British phrase, no studs in his boots. So I don't really think necessarily they're as bad as everyone says. Can they do anything more than people think? I don't think so, but I don't think they'll be as bad as anyone says. The Vipers really surprised me in terms of only putting up 3 points. Although I do think the quarterback change we will see next week.
Well, I mean, we definitely will, because Aaron Murray is injured now.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they picked up a new quarterback from Team 9. And they've also got Dimitri. No, not Dimitri Flowers. They've got Flowers in there as well to come in. So they've picked up an extra one as well.
So yeah, I definitely think, because when Quentin Flowers was on the field, it was like night and day. They moved the ball a lot better.
I was surprised that they didn't keep him in there, that they put Murray back into the game. It was a little odd that they did that, because I felt like when I was watching the game that when Flowers was in there, that it was just going a lot better. Everything seemed to be a little bit more efficient and a little bit, had a little bit of a better flow. So I'm not sure why they made that decision to pull back on that and put Murray back into the game, because as soon as they did, the offense fell flat again.
Yeah, that's the thing. They moved so much better. They moved so much quicker. They looked sharper. And then they take him out of the game right away and put Murray back in, and everything stops dead like they've hit a brick wall. It was really odd from a coaching perspective.
Indeed it was. Jeff, what do you think about the Vipers and the Dragons there, the 2 oddly colored, brightly colored teams, if you will?
Yeah. We had the Seattle at the Dragons at DC Defenders this past week, and I thought that Seattle looked a lot better. I'm going to be very much in agreement with Cameron there that they're not as bad as they seemed. They had a couple of glitches, they had a couple of give-ups, but I think they've been sort of traditionally picked to be last here by many in all, like team number 8 in the entire league. And I don't think they're there right now. I don't think they're number 8. I think they're better than that. That said, I do think that the quarterback Silvers for the Dragons is definitely he's a little bit weak-armed for the league, is what it seems to me. He's not getting his passes out there kind of quickly enough. He's a little behind. He's sort of half a beat behind where he needs to be throwing the ball, and when it does, it kind of just hangs up there. So he was really giving the DC Defenders secondary a great shot at breaking up those passes, and so there was a little bit of frustration there on their part. That said, there were a few flashes of brilliance. There was that first touchdown. They were down 3-0 to the DC when they threw it over the pass, just a basic seam route that went in, and it was just beautifully executed. And so they took the lead, and were even tied at 19 before a couple of mishaps. The block punt was bad for them, obviously, so special teams needs to pick that up. They definitely got, the guy got sucked outside on that block and just let the guy straight through unabated to block the punt for a touchdown. And, 12 points there, it's right there. I do think that, DC struggled a little bit on the PATs. They definitely didn't do too well there.
Mm-hmm.
And then you asked about the Vipers. So jumping over to that game, the Tampa Bay Vipers at the New York Guardians. Tampa Bay put up the most yards of any team, and for that they had the fewest points. They were chewing up yards and shooting themselves in the foot with penalties, with turnovers. I mean, just they'd make a good play and turn around and have a disastrous play. I think that they're probably a bit better than they might have looked, but right now I would put them number 8 in the league.
I don't know if I'd put them at number 8. I'm actually going to put LA at number 8. And I want to talk a little bit more about LA because Los Angeles had a situation this week where it's week 1 of the XFL. It's a brand new league. Everyone's untested. Everyone is, like my daughter that you can probably hear yelling through the door, screaming to have a good time. And Pepper Johnson, the defensive coordinator, fired. He's out at LA. He's gone. He's just done. Week 1, they're not going to give him the chance to prove himself, I guess. They're just going to let him go. So he was indeed let go today. And, so there's rumors abound everywhere right now as to what exactly happened. What have you heard, Geoff? What have you heard, Cam, about what happened with Pepper Johnson at LA?
I hadn't heard much about the rumors. I mean, when I looked it up, all I got was the general manager head coach, which I shall quote him here and say, "We recognize that there are issues we need to address for the 2020 season. While these decisions are difficult, we have given this significant thought. We are here to put the best possible product on the field for our fans. We thank Pepper for his contributions to the Wildcats, and we are looking forward to our home opener this weekend." And from that, that's a very basic statement. He gave up,
sacks, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's basically the gist of it from what I got. He gave up 4 passing touchdowns and 1 rushing one. I'm not sure after 1 week that it deserves to be sacked, but I mean, if there were other rumors that I didn't hear, then that maybe sheds more light on the issue.
Yeah, what have you heard, Geoff?
For me, I haven't really heard the rumors. I know it sounds like you might have a little more information on that one, Caleb. But for me, what I think really is my takeaway is that the LA leadership really seems in disarray. They have a lot of talent on that team, but this whole firing is just like the bookend on something that just looked like, where is the leadership and where is the consistency here? And I really have some doubts about that. I think that when you say that LA is number 8 in the league, that's very possible. Okay, they have the talent to be better than that. They have the talent to make the playoffs, in my opinion. But I also think that they're going to have to solve their leadership issues because I wasn't seeing it on the quarterback, on the coaching staff, and this is just part and parcel to all of that. So I'll throw back to you, Caleb, and say, hey, what are you hearing, or what is it that you've picked up in the rumor mill?
Well, from what I picked up in the rumor mill is basically what we have going on is that we had Pepper Johnson, and this is all hearsay. There's no proof of this. Don't take this as this is actually what happened. This is just the rumor mill that's going around right now. Was that he was involved in basically soliciting offers from other schools or trying to get offers from other schools in college or teams in the NFL for defensive positions. And the head coach, GM of the Wildcats, did not like that. Felt that he should have been committed to the LA Wildcats for the 2020 season. And basically, if that was the case, that you were going to be soliciting these offers, and by soliciting, I mean he wasn't entertaining offers that other people were giving him. He was he was actively looking for another job, basically. And so the rumor is that the head coach just let him go. as it would be better to find a new defensive coordinator now than it would be in, the middle of the season. If he can pick one up, in the next couple of weeks, it's not going to be nearly as bad as if he, had to get one, say, week 6 or 7 in the middle of the season when they're possibly going on a run to the playoffs. Possibly not. We're never going to know until we get there. But that's what I heard, and that makes a lot of sense to me. If it's true that Pepper Johnson was out there soliciting offers to go somewhere else and find another job, number one, why'd you take the job in the first place? And secondly, if you felt something was wrong with the leadership, or you felt something was wrong with the defensive scheming, or whatever the case may be, um, you should have voiced those opinions, and perhaps you did. We obviously don't know what happened behind the curtain of the LA Wildcats team, but just based off of the rumors that I'm hearing, it kind of sounds like Geoff was saying. The leadership there, the organization there is in a lot of trouble, not really doing too hot. And so I'm going to be interested to see if maybe we have a very talented team. Maybe the leadership is what's holding them back. Maybe it's actually the coach / GM that they've selected for LA that's holding them back.
Yeah, I mean, actually, speaking of leadership, allegedly, they've also put up a free agency. Anthony Johnson, one of their linebackers and one of their 4 captains. So, in terms of leadership, on-field leadership, that's another alleged departure.
Wow, that would be really rough. I know that Dallas, for example, they let someone go. One of their backup quarterbacks go, but it was for a personal reason. He requested to be let go, and is actually planning on requesting to come back as well. But he had some personal things he had to deal with, and so they did release him, and they signed Broback. If you guys are fans of the Browns, you may remember Brogan Roback from building the Browns and Hard Knocks NFL Hard Knocks television show, where he was a featured member of the cast on, trying to get that backup quarterback spot in Cleveland next to Baker Mayfield, which he eventually lost to Drew Stanton. Drew Stanton got that position, by the way, if anyone was interested in that. Um, so yeah, I could see the leadership being an issue at LA right now, and maybe we'll get some answers as the season progresses. One of the things about the XFL is that the teams are all privately owned, right, by Vince McMahon. They're just managed by these different coaches and a front office staff. So it'll be interesting to see if anything comes out of that, or if because of that private ownership, they don't really have to have all that dirty laundry aired out onto the national stage. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But as some quarterbacks and coaches are leaving the XFL, we do have some big shoes coming into the XFL, finally getting his start. We do have Landry Jones from the Dallas Renegades. He is coming into his own now. We're finally going to get to see the quote-unquote face of the league. Cameron, you've been doing a lot of research. I didn't do the statistical research because as an Oklahoma fan, I already know who Landry Jones is. I watched him play the game at Oklahoma. But let's hear your statistical breakdown, Cameron, of Sir Landry Jones of the Dallas Renegades.
Right, well, as a Oklahoma fan, I guess you have the benefit of the eye test on him. I mean, I can just look at the stats here, and it's an impressive stat line. Even in his rookie season at Oklahoma, threw over 3,000 yards, and then when he was starting, threw over 4,000 yards all 3 of those seasons. But for that impressive, yardage, he got drafted 115th in the 2013 NFL draft, and then played backup at Pittsburgh for a few seasons, and then went to Jacksonville, where he did nothing. But just looking at his stat lines for Pittsburgh, he threw 1,300 yards for 18 games played through 8 touchdowns and 7 interceptions, which is not the best pro league stat line, but in college he was certainly a very impressive player by the looks of it. So hopefully that's the sort of potential that people are looking at and going, okay, that's the Landry Jones that we're going to see in the XFL now that he's going to get regular starts and has quality wide receivers around him because of this air raid offense that Dallas are really going for. So yeah, I'm excited to see him based off these stats. He is 30 years old, which is the only thing that is slightly jarring me because looking at it, there are younger quarterbacks who are equally exciting, who had maybe less impressive stat lines in college, but still very impressive. But yeah, I'll pass it to Caleb. From the eye test that you saw in Oklahoma, how was he?
Well, number one, he was a damn good quarterback. I mean, he was a pretty good quarterback. Here's the thing about when you go from college to the NFL, you're going from a couple of stars on each team, right? That can carry a team and do a lot of things and make up for some of the amateurism that you have on that college. When you go to the NFL, you're playing against 32 other professionals, right? These are professional players. These are the best of the best, the cream of the crop, right? Landry Jones, number one, he was starting behind Ben Roethlisberger, who's one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL that you'll get. He's a great quarterback. He's a veteran quarterback. He's been there forever and ever. He's like, older than dirt now, right? He's had like 8 rape allegations against him now, so he's just old, right? He's been around the block, right? So, I mean, for someone like that to come in behind someone like Ben Roethlisberger, or if you were to go to, the Patriots, you're behind Brady, you're not going to get that many starts, right? You're not going to get that many reps. Whenever you're in practice, right, the starting line, the ones are going to practice with the ones. The ones don't practice with the twos. So you're practicing with a lower caliber player, and you're not being able to gel with some of those that come in. Now, you say his pro stats aren't nearly as good, but they had to have seen something because when Ben Roethlisberger went down this year, they had Mason Rudolph as their backup quarterback, but who did they call? They called the XFL, and they said, hey, would it be possible for us to sign Landry Jones back? Would it be possible for us to get Landry Jones back onto the Steelers? The XFL said no. Unfortunately, he has signed his contract here, and we're not allowing our quarterbacks to be taken by the NFL until after the season is over. So whenever Ben Roethlisberger went down, Steelers had their own backup quarterback, but they wanted to come after Landry Jones. I think that speaks volumes, right? I think that speaks volumes. And Mason Rudolph is not that terrible of a quarterback. He's terrible at dodging helmets from Myles Garrett, but he's pretty good at throwing the ball. He's you can only say so much about that because he kind of deserved to be hit in the head with a helmet, but that's my opinion. So I mean, it comes down to whenever Ben went down, they wanted Landry to come back. So I think that speaks good to both Landry's character that they would want him to come back, and they think that he has that leadership potential. The other thing with Landry Jones is you have to realize that he's reconnecting with his college coach. Right? He's not going to some NFL team where he's got a brand new coach and everything's brand new. Not only is he coming back and reconnecting with his coach in Bob Stoops, who was his coach at Oklahoma when he had these stat lines, he's reconnecting with former players that he played with at Oklahoma as well. Dallas has, I think, 4 active and 1 inactive Oklahoma player on their roster right now. 1 defensive, 3 offensive, and then, of course, you have 1 extra offensive player who is retired, but they've kept him signed to the Renegades as a player, but he's not playing. He's retired, but basically he's like, I might want to come back. So they're like, well, if you do, you're going to be a Renegade when you do. So it's sort of a weird situation with that. But there are 5 Sooners, and if you count, Bob Stoops, there are 6 Sooners. And we actually, at the very beginning, when the initial rosters were starting to be built, we actually had 8 Oklahoma players on the Dallas Renegades team One got cut and one got traded. So it's just really, really interesting to note that he's going to be back with a coach that knows him, knows his play style, and has already built a team around that play style. So I think once Landry Jones takes the field this Sunday against LA, that number one doesn't even have a defensive coordinator now. I think you're going to see a really, really fantastic offensive game put on by the Renegades just due to the situation that we're in. Geoff, what are your thoughts on that? I know you said you didn't know a whole lot about Landry Jones, but just based on what we've talked about here, where's your head at now on the Landry Jones Dallas Renegades situation?
As you've talked about him, I do actually recall seeing him in college. I didn't really track his pro career, but it sounds to me like the one thing I can say without a doubt when we look at that game where they played against the St. Louis Battlehawks, they couldn't stretch the field. Okay, so you sometimes as a quarterback you need to be able to wing one downfield and connect, or just even get close to connecting, because you got to loosen up that underneath to kind of say, hey, you got to respect our deep pass, because if you're gonna you know bunch up on us and compress your defense, we're going to go over the top and just score on you. They couldn't do that because they're just, Nelson couldn't connect that. He couldn't make that throw. Every time he went deep, it just went harmlessly out of bounds by 5 or 7 yards. They didn't have to respect it, which allows them to really play up and play aggressively. So they were permitting, maybe an underneath throw and then just making an immediate tackle at the spot. I mean, that's not a way to really get down the field and complete a drive. I mean, that would explain a lot of, hey, we can chew up yards, we can keep hitting 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 yard shots all the way up and down the field, but we can't actually run an offense inside that red zone. We're suddenly too compressed and we haven't loosened anything up. So that inability to really loosen that defense and connect on a deep ball was really lacking for Dallas. And if Landry Jones can connect on one or two of those, they'll be fine. And against LA, am I concerned about them winning? No, they'll get their first win this weekend. I have no doubt about that. I mean, don't want to jump into pick them just yet here, but I'm with you on that. I don't think that's going to be a concern.
Yeah, I definitely think Landry is going to change the landscape there in Dallas. It's going to be and look like a totally different team than we saw last Saturday. I am a Dallas biased individual. That is my team that I root for, but specifically because of the fact that we have all of the former Oklahoma Sooners on there. So I personally am excited to see what Landry Jones brings to the table, and it could be a total flop. And then we're just like, shit, But I think Landry's gonna bring something to the table for Dallas and get Dallas back on track to being the favorite to win the XFL 2020 season. So let's move in and let's see where we're at on our power rankings. These power rankings are voted on and brought to you by the writing staff, the presenting staff, and the analytics staff here at From the Stands. Will in the chat says Landry was trashing Pitt and going to be trashing the XFL. Here's the thing about that. Pittsburgh still called for him to come back once Big Ben went down, so it couldn't have been that bad, Will. Couldn't have been that bad, Will. Why don't you come on the show? Why don't you come on the show next week with your dirty orange shirt on, okay? Your cowboy poking shirt on, and we'll talk about it. All right, guys, this is our week 2 power rankings here From the Stands. Again, this is by the presenters, writers, and analysts from the Stands. And we've got in the East, number 1, the Guardians. Number 2, the Defenders. Number 3, the Battlehawks. Number 4, the Vipers. Now, Geoff is going to bring us up to speed here because we actually had a few more votes come in just before the show. We weren't able to get the graphics department to get those scoreboards updated for us, but we do actually, if you'll notice, have a tie here in the East between the Defenders and the Battlehawks. Geoff, based on the current results, who is actually number 2 and who is actually number 3 now in the East.
Right. We did have a tie there, and I mean everything. Like the votes were identical. We have New York at number 1, St. Louis at number 2, DC at number 3, and Tampa Bay at number 4 for the E.
Nice.
Yep.
So I mean, it's still actually the way it is on the graphic. So that's good. At least the placement is still the same. But that's not going to be the case for the West, where we have number 1, the Houston Roughnecks, number 2, the Dallas Renegades, number 3, the Seattle Dragons, and number 4, the LA Wildcats. We do have a tie between Seattle and Dallas, and I believe there's a shakeup in there, right, Geoff?
Absolutely. This one really moved a lot. Okay, so we had number 1 at Houston, 2 Los Angeles, 3 Dallas, and 4 Seattle. So they, I believe, if memory serves, dropped from 2 to 4 with a couple more votes from our staff here. So
Well, they dropped from
Houston,
3 to
Los
4.
Angeles.
LA
Oh,
went
did they?
from
Okay.
LA did the opposite, went from 4 to 2.
Oh, that's what it was. Okay, so that was quite a change for Los Angeles there. Yeah. And a lot of these are malleable, and the way we did the voting, just to be clear and transparent, we broke it up by division. So even though we have some more points maybe in the West, there's a little more concentration. It's not necessarily indicative that the West is better than the East or anything. These are literally votes by division and not by overall performance.
Indeed. So, what do you think? What do you feel about these rankings here, Cameron?
I think they're pretty. I think maybe the news about Los Angeles defensive coordinator may drop them, but it's very close anyway. But I guess having seen how they performed against Houston, they deserve really to be at the number 2 spot. Seattle, do they deserve to be at the bottom? You could make a case not, but I think just looking at the margins of victory between Dallas and St. Louis and Seattle and DC, put them there. In the East, New York, I think, deservedly deserves to be top. Very obvious why Tampa Bay are bottom, putting up only 3 points off of the most yards. And I think between St. Louis and DC, there's not much to split them. I think 2 promising quarterbacks, 2 defenses that on the day proved to be very hard to stop. It remains basically a toss-up between 2 and 3 there, but I think that is an accurate power ranking. As I don't think anyone's going to have any quarrels with it, to use the phrase.
I can definitely see that. I think it's week 1. We've seen them play one time. We've seen teams possibly trying out things that they wouldn't have normally tried deeper into the season. So I think things will start sort of balancing themselves out. I think right now it's still a little too early to give out a true ranking of the teams. Obviously, of course, everyone's going to do it. We're going to do it. That's, how you get ratings and clicks, and that's what you've got to do in the industry to, get those clicks and whatnot, is do things like rank an 8-team league for whatever reason. So you got to do those things, and this is what we've come up with. I think it's fair for week 1. I think it's a fair assessment week 1. I think the only true standouts to me are DC, New York, and Houston, right? Those are 3. I think if you were to not have the East-West divisional breakup, I think those would be your top 3 teams. And I think your bottom 3 would be LA, Seattle, Vipers, and I think St. Louis and Dallas are right there in the middle. I mean, and that's kind of crazy. They played each other really well. It's a very defensive game, though. So we'll have to see if, via quarterback changes, Dallas bringing in their starter quarterback. We'll see what St. Louis does with their situation. So we still don't know how exactly the season's going to play out. But based on what we saw, I think these are all right. Geoff, any final thoughts on the power rankings?
Yeah, I think that I largely agree with them. I think that there's a certain difficulty in that there's a lot of unknowns.
Hmm.
So as of right now, um, I would say that there is um, it's a little weird. I would say that there's a lot of sort of I think some losing teams aren't as bad as they seem, and some winning teams are not as good as they seem. I do think in the East, I don't sort of value the Battlehawks quite as highly as we have here, ranked number two. I really think they're number three. They're run heavy. I just don't think this is a run heavy kind of
League.
league. I really think you need to pass, much like the NFL. I mean, if you don't pass, you're not going to survive here. Um, and LA is really a wild card at this point to me, just because of the leadership issues. So that'll either
Yeah.
straighten itself out, and they could be in the playoffs, or they could finish fourth. And so that's really the unknown. And what we've really done here is look at what the performance was in week one, not really, hey, what if we get a starter back and suddenly Dallas is the team to beat anywhere? I rated them appropriate to what they performed as,
That's
and
fair.
I know everyone else did too. You know.
Well, we got user in the chat here says they already fired Pepper Johnson. I guess he wasn't watching earlier when we had the graphic on the screen where we talked about Pepper Johnson being fired. So just for him, we're gonna throw that back onto the screen just to let him know that, hey, we kind of know what we're doing. He also says, "Let me jump in on this." Well, if you'd actually like to jump in on this, you can join our Discord. If you go to fromthestands.us, you can find all that information, the Discord, and all that stuff. We challenge and welcome everyone to join the show and bring what they can bring. Matter of fact, Cameron, who you're seeing right now, he's only been here for what, like 2 weeks, something like
Yeah,
that.
I came here. Yeah, last week. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you want to come on, just come on. I mean, that's all I can tell you. You got to jump in. We'll see where you figure it out, right? We'll figure out where to put you. That's all I can tell you. But for now, let's. Jeez, she really wants to come in my room right now.
What's
She
her
is.
take?
Hey, you can childproof a house, but they still get in. I can tell you that.
It's true. It's true. It's true.
I got one on the way, so I know well.
Yeah.
I got two already and another one coming.
Well, make sure you go to fromthestands.us for the Discord information and all of that to reach out. Someone may even reach out to you from the team here since they see you chatting. That being said, we're going to move on in the last few minutes that we have. We're going to move on to our pick'ems, which apparently the system believes that we've already picked a team. I don't think you're going to go with the Vipers, but we'll go ahead and take that off of there for you real quick. So let's go ahead and let's jump into this. The first game we have this week is going to be DC versus New York. New York Guardians going to be at DC. What are you feeling about this game, Cameron? How do you feel like it's going to end up going? What's your preview on this one?
I mean, can I say, firstly, after last week, this week's matchups are very interesting because you have all the teams that won playing each other, which makes it a hell of a lot more exciting. New York, DC, a very interesting one. I feel like New York came up against a weakened Tampa Bay side. DC came up against a much stronger Seattle side and managed to win. So I'm going to lean more towards the home side. I'm going to pick DC.
All right.
I think the crowd there definitely is going to have an impact.
Yeah, I think DC's saying they're hoping to get to a point where they sell 30,000 tickets. They said they're really close to it or something like that. Geoff, what do you got for this New York DC game here?
Well, let me tell you, this is the matchup I really want to see. I mean, I'm going to tell you, this is like the game. You got New York Guardians with former Penn State quarterback Matt McGloin. Now, I'm a Penn State alum. I'm Penn State biased. I got my little Penn State mug right here from the stadium. I'm a fan. I can tell you McGloin's not super accurate. He does tend to throw the ball off the mark a few feet or a few yards, so you could see a few short thrown passes and things like that. But he's very competent, and he's a heck of a competitor. I mean, he will lead you back. versus a former Ohio State quarterback in Cardale Jones. So believe me, the regional interest for me is huge. Like I want my Penn State guy. Both of these teams are very defensive-minded teams. They both survived Week 1 on the backs of defense and special teams play. I'm going to lean New York Guardians here, but I'm really kind of split. And I'm hoping just for the name, hey, look, I got to enjoy a little Penn State over Ohio State action. But Cardale Jones is a heck of a competitor, and he's very accurate as a passer. So I think, if you say DC, I could take it, but I'm going to go to Guardian.
That's fair. I watched all the games last week. I'm not saying I'm going to watch all the games every week, but I did watch all the games last week. And just based on that, I think Cardale Jones played really well. I just don't think he played as well as I thought he would. I thought Cardale Jones was going to come in and basically just wreck the league, and it would be... I called it from the beginning. I thought it was going to be Jones versus Jones in the championship game. Landry Jones versus Cardale Jones. DC Defenders versus the Dallas Renegades. That being said, I didn't see DC play as well as I thought they would. I thought they'd be a little bit better. I thought they'd be a little bit more on the ball. So for New York versus DC, I'm actually going to break this tie and side with Geoff, and I'm going New York. Guardians take the win on this one. Next game up, we have the Vipers versus the Dragons. Now, Will asked a very important question in the chat. The user did. User asked, how many Dragons are there in Seattle? I don't know, but there's probably more than there are points scored in the last Vipers game by the Vipers. So, that being said, ladies and gentlemen, let's get into Vipers versus Dragons. Geoff, tell me about this game.
Yeah, you got Tampa Bay, which again we know they chewed up yardage, didn't finish drives, and then you've got Seattle, who played a good game, but they're a little lax on the quarterback play. Yeah, this is a tough pick, and again I'm going to go almost with a push, but I'm going to go Seattle Dragons if you force me. So I'm going to take Dragons over the Vipers.
Jeff's going Seattle on that one. What do you got for me, Cameron? Where are we at here?
Yeah, I think the two losing teams left in the league. I agree with Geoff. I think Seattle, in their loss, played far better than Tampa Bay, despite Tampa Bay gaining a lot of yardage. I think the production from Seattle was better. So, again, I'm going for another home victory. I'm going to pick Seattle.
Okay. Just going with, let's see here, Seattle. All right. So we got Seattle and Seattle for this one, guys. Here's my thoughts on this, okay? We got the two worst teams in the nation. All right, two worst teams. This is if New York versus DC is the week 2 game of the century, this is the week 2, week 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 and postseason toilet bowl, right? This game should be played at the end of the season, just before the championship game, just to see the parity between all of the teams, all right? These guys are bad. Sorry. It happens. Someone had to be the bottom, all right? You can't make beautiful, beautiful love without someone being on the bottom, all right? So, which one is the best of the worst? I'm going to have to give this one to the Vipers. I think the Vipers are going to come back. They're ready to strike. Isn't that their slogan? Ready to strike, right? I think they're pissed off. I think they've rattled the Rattlers. I think we're going for it. I'm gonna say Tampa Bay, the Vipers take week 2 and take the Seattle Dragons down. Boy, oh boy, that was a lot of words that just came out of my mouth there. A whole lot of words. Geoff, tell me about Dallas and LA. I know right here we got user in the chat. He's ready for the Renegades. Let's go Renegades. Yada yada yada. Well, what do we got on this one here, Geoff? Dallas versus LA. Texas versus California.
Yeah, and I'm going to have to go ahead and say, look, we've got Los Angeles, they've got quarterback Knopf, and he's pretty smart. He put up record numbers in the Ivy Leagues at Princeton. Really a solid guy. versus Dallas with Hal Mummy's air raid offense. And in the end, I got to really lean towards saying Dallas Renegades, and probably I think that those organizational problems and the return of Landry Jones is just far too much to handle, and I don't think this one's probably going to be. This may be the biggest spread of the this week, is what I would almost guess. We're going to go with Renegades, probably plus the points.
All right, here we go. I'm going to have to agree with you on this one, and obviously not because of my bias. I think the Dallas Sooners are going to do really, really well in this game, and they're going to come out with a win led by their quarterback Landry Jones, their Sooner wide receiver Jeff Badette, their Sooner coach Bob Stoops, and I think Dallas is going to come out on top. Do you have something different to say, Cameron? Are you going somewhere else? Are we going with Dallas? What are you thinking about this game, my friend?
I don't think you can go anywhere else but Dallas. I think especially if we look at LA last week giving up 4 touchdowns through the air and then firing their defensive coordinator and releasing a linebacker against this air raid offense with the starting quarterback, I think you can't go anywhere else but Dallas.
Fair enough. Brian in the chat brings up a solid point as well, that Knopf is actually out, or could be out for this game. Knopf is on limited participation in practice this week.
That's correct. He did have that low ankle sprain late in the game there, I believe.
Yeah. And our last game is going to be Houston versus St. Louis. Houston looked really, really good last week. Cameron, are they going to do it again? Are they going to pull it out? Are they going to beat St. Louis based on what you saw when they played Dallas?
Here's the thing. This is the battle of the 2 quarterbacks that I love the most in this league. I love Jordan Ta'amu. His full name, let me get it for you. Jordan Talolo Ta'amu Perifanos. What a name.
That is ladies and gentlemen, that is a British man saying a Samoan last name on an American football television show. All right, we hit some kind of trifecta just now. All right, I don't know what it was about him saying the Samoan. I feel like we should all break out in like a Samoan chant right now.
We need to do a haka. That's what you need to do.
Right. Anyways, I just wanted to point that out. We got a British man saying the Samoan name, and on an American football show. Anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry.
But yeah, this is the battle of the 2 quarterbacks that I'm most looking forward to seeing. PJ Walker, Jordan Ta'amu. I'm going to go balls to the wall in this one. I'm going to say this one is the game that is going to go to overtime. I'm going to say that this is the game where we're going to see the overtime rules go in after a pretty high-scoring regular time. And in that point, I think I'm just going to go with St. Louis. I'm going to back the slinging Samoan. I'm going to back the slinging Samoan, Jordan Ta'amu, to win it in overtime for St. Louis.
He's going with St. Louis. Jeff, where you at on this one, bud? We got St. Louis and Houston, Jeff. Where you at on that? What are you thinking?
Yeah. You got my audio here?
Yeah, I've got your audio. Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. Yeah, I've already sort of alluded to the fact that I feel like St. Louis does not quite have what it takes offensively for this league, and I'm going to go and stick with that, because I'm going to tell you, with that running offense versus the front 7 defensively, the Houston Roughnecks that's ready to tee off and are just going to enjoy it every time they want to come at them. They're just going to, stop up those gaps and drive them backward. I mean, they're going to have a field day on that, if you ask me. I think that the Houston Roughnecks are going to win this going away, and they're really going to enjoy it. So I'm a little different perspective than our other host here, Cameron. I got to go with Houston, and I'm not, that's my sort of like lock of the week.
That's your lock of the week. Houston is definitely beating St. Louis.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're run out of time at 7:00. I'm gonna keep it short here, but I'm gonna say that Houston was incredibly impressive last week. I saw a lot of really good talent out there on the field. I saw a lot of really good coaching. I saw a lot of just fundamental football that I think if they keep that going, they will give Dallas a run for their money. Dallas, of course, is going to win. But, you got to give credit where credit is due. I think Houston came out and really showed off some incredible football for us that week. So I'm going to go with Houston over St. Louis week 2, giving it to the Roughnecks. So we tend to, between the three of us, we all think Dallas is going to win. We're 2 out of 3 for the Roughnecks to win their game, the Dragons to win their game, and the Guardians to win their game. So we'll see how it shapes out coming up this Saturday and Sunday on ABC and ESPN, unless you're, like Cameron in Britain land over there. It comes, I guess, on BT. Is that what you said, a BT in Britain?
It's all on BT Sport. Yep,
is it live or is it, like, pushed back to the daytime?
No, It's live. We basically just steal it from the American broadcasters.
Oh, wow.
I see the same broadcast you guys do.
So, like, they don't even, it's like Fox and ESPN's broadcasting? Like, they don't use their own graphics
during the game, it's Fox's and ESPN's overlays. We don't see the adverts. We get our own British adverts. And then what BT do is, because the adverts don't line up perfectly, they put in, like, a screensaver thing, and the XFL has its own screensaver.
That's pretty cool. That is pretty cool, I'm not gonna lie. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, thank you.
ABC Fox.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
We're actually on ABC Fox and Fox Sports 1 this weekend. So New York Guardians at DC Defenders, 2 p.m. on ABC on Saturday. 5 p.m. Vipers at Dragons on Fox, and Sunday will be 3 p.m., so that's a change from last week. Renegades Wildcats on ABC. And finally, 6 p.m., Battlehawks Roughnecks on Fox Sports 1.
Well, see, here's the thing about it. Like, you say it's on ABC, but let's be honest. It is on ABC, but it's run by ESPN. It uses those ESPN graphics, which I like the graphics for ESPN, but I think Fox did it better, personally.
Yeah.
It's the big mouse, it's all Disney in the end.
Yeah.
Right? So, yeah. Well, happy Valentine's, everyone.
Indeed.
Yep. Officially Valentine's Day.
Yeah. Give a kiss or a snog to whoever you love, right?
Indeed. Guys, thanks so much for tuning in today to From the Stands XFL Week 2. Be sure to head over to the website where we have a lot of our beat writers there over there writing up to their heart's content. We're updating our Twitter all the time, so twitter.com/FromTheStandsUS and FromTheStands.us on the intertubes. There's also Facebook, Discord, and all that good stuff. You can find all that out on the website. Guys, it's been a pleasure to serve you some football opinions today. Lord knows it's not factual. We don't know what the hell we're talking about, but we're very opinionated, and we appreciate you guys listening to those opinions. Ladies and gentlemen, we will see you all next week.